friends, and welcome to Inks and Issues, a podcast where we do a book club, but for comics. I'm your host, Jonah Gregory, and this is for all the boys who died on the beaches of Normandy.
And my name's Kieran, and you're not blowing up Gotham City.
And today, thanks to our good friend Ben Apperson, or Bapperson as he's better known online, we are recording an episode about Superman at Earth's End. Why? Because it was too weird to not talk about.
Yep.
So this is a book I had never heard of. It's an Elseworlds book. And in this book, it's the far future. It's 2102. Well, let me give you a little intro here. It says September 26, 2102 AD. In his 150 years on Earth, the Man of Steel has seen civilization twice destroyed. Following the second apocalypse, very different from the Age of Apocalypse, just to be clear.
Very different. Very
Under
different.
the shadow of polluted skies, his powers ebbed, and he forgot even his own name. Finally, he was rescued by the youth Commandi and the Biomech Sevens, a race of biological machines programmed to find the cause of the second apocalypse. The Sevens brought Superman to their orbiting city above the clouds. There, in the bright sunlight, his mind and powers returned. Superman helped the Biomechs to defeat the Machine Mother, the system's computer that had killed most of the people in the world. Now, the Biomechs have asked Superman to join them in their efforts to cleanse the Earth of subhuman scum. But the Man of Steel has other ideas. And let me tell you a little something. I didn't notice this intro was in the book the first time I read it. So I had no idea what the hell was going on when I started reading this book.
Yeah, so technically Superman at Earth's End is actually a sequel to Commandi at Earth's End, which was a Elseworlds like reimagining of the DC series Commandi, which was made by Jack Kirby in 1972.
Right.
And so all of the aforementioned events actually take place in that one, and this is a direct sequel to that book.
That actually makes so much more sense that this is a sequel to something, because they sure assume you know a lot more about what's going on than you do.
Yes. I mean, we should probably clarify here. It doesn't make a lot more sense, but it does make a little bit more sense. No.
Yeah. The fact that this book was made makes a slight more amount of sense that it was a sequel.
So this just, these are the fun facts, I suppose, if we can even call them that. This originally came out in 1995. It was written by Tom Veitch, and the art was by Frank Gomez. And people might actually recognize this series from, there's like a picture that kind of floats around the internet every so often, sort of comes up. It's like Superman, and he's got like a really big beard and like big white hair, and he has a gun that is made just like of guns, all stuck together. That's where this is where that picture comes from. From this book.
The gun that's made of a bunch of other guns, but somehow tied together with like a semi-truck timing belt. That is very key to this amazing story about Superman at Earth's End in the year 2102. I double checked that as I was saying it just to make sure.
I mean, we want to make sure we get our facts right.
Any other fun facts for us?
No, literally nothing to be honest.
You said even the people involved, which did we mention writer, artist, etc.?
Yeah, Tom Veitch and Frank Gomez. They've done like other things, but not like nothing
high profile like this.
Nothing particularly high profile.
Yeah.
No, sorry to Tom Veitch and Frank Gomez if they're ever listening to this. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sure they're totally fine dudes. It's just I am unfamiliar with their work. Not trying to call anyone out there or anything. All right. We read the little intro. So I guess we'll just, this wasn't broken down in issues. It's like a single volume. It's like 57 pages, I want to say. It's very short.
52 pages? Yeah.
And it also moves really quickly because it's got some really big, bold panels constantly.
Really big panels all the time.
So I have to say the opening line, it's really striking because it's Superman, who's old and looks like Santa Claus, which is referenced later. He's wearing... Now, let's talk about this suit design. I'm not a fan. Yeah. It's all blue, except for the Superman the S symbol. and like a utility belt that he probably got from Batman at some point as like a birthday present,
Probably.
I would imagine. But that's it. No cape, no shorts.
No, nothing.
This was definitely the 90s where they were like, oh, we're too cool to have good superhero costume designs.
And it's also short sleeve as well.
Yes, that is an odd choice.
It's a really weird choice to have like long pants, short sleeve t-shirt, but they're all the same color. So it's like he's wearing a short sleeve onesie.
Yep.
With a Superman emblem on the front. It's, it was a choice.
Uh-huh.
And they made it.
He looks like an old biker dude who just is what happens to be wearing a Superman shirt that day.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain based on how the rest of this goes, that's exactly the vibe they wanted to go for.
Right. That's fair. I didn't even think about that would tie into some of the stuff we'll get to later. So the first line is, "You're not blowing up Gotham City," Superman that we just described, looking interesting, is yelling at two identical robot men who have weird chicken-like gobble things on their heads. What are those things called?
Yeah, they do. They have wattles on the top of their head. I can only assume it's so that they can receive signals better or something.
Yeah. So these are in the intro that we had mentioned, the Biomech Sevens, which are this supposed master race of cool robot men. They're like the next evolution of humans, according to whoever built them. Probably some mad scientist, usually. One of them is a guy that Superman knows, Ben Boxer. And I'm not familiar with that character. Did you know anything about Ben Boxer?
Absolutely no idea who the person is.
I was curious.
I'm assuming that if I'd read the previous story, I would have been like, oh my God, Superman and Ben Boxer, they're fighting. No way.
Yeah, that's terrible news. Ben Boxer is apparently, he's one of the nuclear people of Earth AD. So that tells me absolutely nothing. But he does have some sort of fission chamber inside of his heart or something. I don't know. It's weird looking. And it also looks incredibly old. Which is the kind of thing that comics writers that are older sometimes like to reference to make those young whippersnappers want to look at the comics they grew up with. And you know what? It works. So they have a big tussle because they want to blow up Gotham and basically just say, you know what would be better than trying to salvage the Earth? Let's just burn it all to the ground and start over.
Yeah. You know what? All those humans down there, let's just kill all of them. That would be so much easier.
Yeah, there's too many monsters. Who cares?
Exactly. And Superman, he's like, hey, guys, let's maybe not do that.
Yeah, and they have a big old fight. Superman actually punches one of these biomech people so hard that he, like, rips his robo guts out. It basically, if it were a normal human, his intestines would be spilling out and he's like holding them in. It's very graphic, but because it's a robot guy, it's
a robot,
orange and green and stuff. It's very strange. There's some definite choices that were made. And Superman, because he's above the clouds for that year, is back to being able to fly and do cool things. And they can't have that because he would be too powerful if that were the case. They definitely were leaning very heavily into the Superman is just a solar battery thing that some writers really, really go into.
100%.
Which I've seen used effectively and less effectively. I'd say in this book, maybe less effectively.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Maybe less effectively. Yeah. Superman isn't so much like, he doesn't so much get his power from the sun as he is like a garden light that has to be exposed to the sun like every 5 seconds. Otherwise he'll die. Because like once he goes below the clouds, he's like, oof, can't see the sun anymore. Time to shit my pants. So, yeah, he's very, very dependent on that solar radiation.
Yeah, to a kind of ridiculous degree. So he flies down to Gotham because he's like, how bad could it possibly be? And honestly, when he first flies through, you're like, yeah, that looks about Gotham. Like, there's not really anything different here.
No, there's nothing different whatsoever. It looks exactly the same.
Uh-huh. So after 2 apocalypses, Gotham looks identical. Like no buildings have been knocked down. If they were, they rebuilt them. And then a giant man bat, but it's not actually a man bat, flies out of nowhere and attacks Superman. But when he's fighting him, he's like, what? That has Bruce's face. And I'm like, does it though? Because it still just looks like Man-Bat.
I think you're projecting here, Superman.
I mean, like, I get that you miss your friend because he probably died a long time ago with this version of Superman living, super long into his lifespan. Sorry for that one. I'll show myself out. But basically he goes on about like these grotesque mutations with a human face. Its face was so much like Bruce's. What does it mean? And that'll of course be something that they might come back to.
Maybe
a little bit of foreshadowing, but then there's just a whole bunch of them. And in true comic book or anything action-y fashion, when there's a bunch of monsters that are super difficult, they're suddenly a lot easier to kill because a bunch of kids on bikes roll up with some guns and are taking out these bat creature things that Superman was like, oh no, my strength.
Yep. But the kids are like, we have guns. And they carve them up pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge theme in this book is like, basically the robots were telling Superman, or the androids, apologies, were telling Superman like, hey, it's a world of guns down there now. Like your buddy Bruce wouldn't even like recognize Gotham, which again looks exactly the same. Like this group of rowdy children who ride motorcycles and shoot guys would look not out of place at all in a normal Batman story.
Not in the slightest. In fact, even the Bat Mutants would probably be right at home in a regular Batman story.
Exactly. So there's these punk kids, and at first they're like, hey, this old guy is cramping our style, but turns out once he's like, no, I'm Superman. They're like, oh, that's cool. And they take him to their secret hideout, which happens to be Wayne Manor. Cause everything has to tie back into directly relating to Batman.
Always Batman all the time. Constantly Batman.
It's a DC story. So of course the answer is Batman.
I do enjoy that. So when they get there, they get to Wayne Manor, and he's like, Wayne Manor, you live here? There's Bruce's tomb. I built it myself to honor my friend. And it has a bat symbol above the door. And it's built literally next to the manor. And I'm like, I feel like Bruce would be a little miffed if, they finally meet in heaven.
Just slightly PO'd.
And he's like, hey, how did my secret identity go after I died? And he's like, oh, I gave it away immediately. Like that
is the impression I get because they reference Bruce Wayne, like not just Superman, like everyone knows that Bruce Wayne was Batman at this point.
Yeah.
So they go in this tomb. When they get there and the door is like ripped off the hinges. And so, of course, they're like, hey, that sucks because, and of course, it has that thing that irritates me a lot in stories, and it happens in most of them, where these two groups that are now working together, but they're kind of a loose alliance. But as soon as he sees anything wrong, he spins around on the kids and is like, you did this, you rotten kids. It's like, dude, this thing has been broken open for probably at least twice as long as these kids have been alive. So like, get a grip, old man.
You're the nearest people I can see. Fuck you.
Pretty much. So they go exploring Wayne Manor. Could you tell us the first artifact that we are introduced to in this book?
I mean, I guess technically it's just a picture of Bruce, but I suppose if you want me to talk about the second, it's a little display case, and inside is a gun. And on that gun, next to the gun, it's a plaque. And on that plaque it says, the gun that killed my parents.
Comma, Raphael.
So there's a TikTok where someone like has that panel and they've like green screened their face onto it, and he's like, "This is where my parents died, Raphael." And then he goes, "Cow, bummer, dude."
Yeah, I have seen a lot of photoshops of that with like an extra talk bubble so people can write whatever they want Raphael's response to be, and that is definitely one I have seen.
Yeah, so Bruce has the gun that killed his parents.
I have a lot of questions, like, how did he track down that specific gun? Why would he keep it?
I can only assume he picked it up that night and was like, one day I'm going to have a hallway full of memorabilia, and this is the most important piece.
Yep. And this is like, I guess there's like a long hallway that just has a staircase down to the Batcave now, because they're just walking along and there's these giant portraits of like Joker, and these aren't like mugshots. It's like Bruce had these professionally painted just so he could hang up his villains gallery as a literal gallery.
It's so weird. They're like, it was like someone was like, okay, what I want on this panel is the Rogues Gallery, and someone was like, yeah, I know what a gallery is. Yeah, it's a thing of paintings, right?
I mean, yeah, they're not wrong.
It's so bizarre. And also, like, looking at the panel as well, these are huge pictures. They're like a good 5-6 feet tall. They are massive paintings.
Easily, because what's Superman supposed to be, like 6'6" or something?
And
they're, I think they'd be taller than him if you like scooched him up on the panel.
It's really, and also they're riding their motorcycles through the hallway as well,
and down the stairs, which is great.
And down the stairs,
they are some rowdy kids. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I do enjoy. They they never get off these motorcycles.
Hardly ever. Yeah, they're basically attached to them. But I did appreciate that they immediately were like, these are comic book readers. They're going to be like, how does the Batcave still have power after all these years? So Superman's internal dialogue is just like, oh man, it's great that he had these atomic batteries that last thousands of years. Anyway, moving on.
I mean, that's exactly why.
Yeah, there is a lot of angsty Superman internal monologues happening in this book that seem very un-Superman.
Oh yeah, this Superman is like super super bitter about like everything. It's just like everything is awful and horrible, and the world is terrible. And I'm like, this is not the Superman that I'm familiar with. I'm not very familiar with Superman.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your dad's Superman, I assume.
No.
Yeah, so they show Superman that there's this big pipe that leads out of the Batcave. It's like sewer pipe, but they're walking on the top of it, and it leads down this series of caves, which just happens to end at the vaults from Fallout with a giant 56 on it.
Yes.
And it essentially is that, because they talk about like there was that first apocalypse, and then they built all these tunnels to save mankind if there was ever a second one, and so everyone fled down there. But then there was the evil bad guys that were doing weird experiments and stuff that we're about to get to.
I was like, yeah, we should also mention, they do actually mention them earlier, because so when Superman notices the destroyed tomb, and he's like, you meddlesome kids, or dastardly children or whatever, they're like, it wasn't us, it was the dictators, and it's spelt D-I-K, so just make sure you're really pronouncing that in your head correctly. So we're about to meet them.
Yes. So inside the vault, they're immediately greeted by the kids' parents were also taken, which probably mentioned. So they're our parents are down here probably. And they are, but they're all like weird and mutated, and like their skin's kind of like melted looking and weird. And they don't know the kids. And I mean, they do recognize them, but they're like, you are the reason that everything's terrible for some reason, kid that has nothing to do with anything. So their brains have been corrupted, and Superman's like, oh, they died a long time ago, son. And they're just like, okay, I guess that's...
Look at them. Their minds are gone. I think your real father left that rotting sack of tumors long ago. And then, he fights
Also,
them.
I have to comment that the giant robots in the background, one, just look like the Mousers from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, except giant and with arms. And two... I typed the binary into a translator, and it is gibberish. So,
oh man,
I know, right? I was very disappointed.
Why would you bother writing all that binary then?
Right? They're just like, this looks cool, and nobody knows binary. Ticka, 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 ticka. And not very blissfully unaware that someday we'd just be able to go on our computer and type in binary translator and immediately translate it.
In 1995, I doubt they were like, one day people are going to have access to so much information, they'll be able to translate this in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. I figured maybe it was one of those like nerdy Easter egg things, and I was a little disappointed that it wasn't.
You translate it and it would be like Batman is Bruce Wayne.
Right. Oh, it says be sure to drink your malto meal or whatever. All right. So you want to take it from here for a bit?
Yeah, sure. So, so Superman's like, your parents are all dead, kids. Get over it. And he starts fighting the mutants, and he starts fighting the robot. And one of the robots picks him up. And this is the first kind of instance that we really get of Superman being like, oh, I've been out of the sun for like a good 45 seconds. My strength, it's fading. But he manages to break out of the robot's hand. And he starts, the kids are like, can we help you? And he's like, no, it's all good. I've got it. And one of the kids gives Superman a gun, and Superman thraps with the gun and blows up one of the robots. And then Superman collapses because, he's losing his powers and he's getting very tired.
Can I say my favorite thing in that panel is that he's aiming with the gun, the Liefeld-esque arms rippling muscles shouldn't exist, and he's saying, "Thanks, guy."
I like to imagine he's saying it like that. Thanks, guy.
Yeah.
Thrap.
Right. And they're like, you say you don't kill people, but you just used a gun on that guy. And he's like, it was a robot. Robots aren't real.
Robots aren't real. They're not people. They don't have souls.
They weren't androids. I mean, come on.
It's not like I ripped his guts out. So they all run away. And Superman's like, I gotta find Bruce's remains, because that's like what the DNA dictators have been using to like fuse with other things, because Batman's DNA is good, I guess.
I mean, Bruce was quite the stallion, apparently, and they just want his DNA on everything. And he didn't give it up when he was alive. We know this.
No.
Batman has never fucked and never will.
He's never come. No, he's never done a cum.
He's like the hero in Yakuza. He has never killed and he has never had sex. Those are the two things we know for sure.
And so Superman's like, I'm really weak. I'm going to need at least another year of soaking up sunlight to permanently restore my strength, which honestly seems fucking insane to me. That is
right.
So long.
Also, yeah, like you said, he's only had his powers like on the planet for not even a day, and he's like, "Oh, I'm at half strength."
Yeah,
like, how? What were you doing?
Yeah, right.
Like you fought like two guys.
He flies down to the planet. He fights the bat things, and then they go to Wayne Manor, and then they walk. I think he says they walk 10 miles to get to the vault from the Batcave. So how long does it take to walk 10 miles? Let's see.
The kids are on bikes. They never show him really use super speed in this.
Okay, so it is rough. Okay, so it's like roughly an hour and a half. 2 hours and 30 minutes to walk 10 miles.
Now, Kieran.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I am a 40-year-old man with a heart condition, and I have walked that far without dying. I mean, the sun was out, granted. However,
well, exactly. So,
I am not the last son of Krypton, despite what I may have claimed on social media.
So Superman's been using his powers for all of 4 hours, maybe
maximum,
to be generous. And already he's like, "Oh, I might have strength. I'm going to need so long in the sun to regenerate." But
maybe he just is hungry. Did he ever think of that? He hasn't eaten anything.
He hasn't eaten. Oh my god! That always happens to me. I'm like, I feel so run down and sick, and
you're like, why am I grumpy? Why am I snapping at all my friends?
Exactly.
This is not me. I haven't eaten today.
I was literally at home the other day, and I was doing the dishes. Nick wasn't home yet, and I was just like, these fucking dishes, this stupid plate. I hate all of this. And I was so bristly at everything, and then I realized I hadn't eaten dinner. I hadn't eaten lunch either.
Ooh.
I'd had a muesli bar all day.
Yeah, that's not enough there, bud.
It was not. It was not. And I sat out in the sun for about 365 days, and I felt great afterwards.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that it had a happy ending. But now we're recording, and oh man, we're 25 minutes in. You're about at 2/3 power right now.
I know. I'm already running down. I can feel myself fading away. But luckily, the problem with Superman's powers being only at half strength, they're solved. They're going to be solved because one of the kids is like, hey, why don't you use this giant gun that is just sitting here on a pedestal? And Jonah, what's the gun called?
The gun, conveniently for us, the audience, has a plaque that they zoom in on just so you can read it. It says, "The Expunger, weapon captured by Batman in his final case. On his deathbed, Bruce Wayne spoke these last words. One day the world will be free of guns, or the world will be no more." So, did Superman walk this back to the Batcave and forget that the Expunger was there? Or how did it get back to the Batcave?
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. I also want to know, what was Bruce Wayne's final case that this thing was like so key to it that he was like, man, I got to take this back to my Batcave.
Well, clearly in this timeline, his final case happened in the 90s. Based on this gun design.
Jesus Christ, yes. Oh my goodness. It is it's 4 chain gun barrels strapped together with like another 5 barrels sort of stuffed in the middle, and then what looks like a car engine on top with like some lights as well. And then like
headlights.
And then like 4 or 5 chain gun belts coming off the bottom as well.
Right, and like I mentioned earlier, it's wrapped around like the belts in your engine that like put all the gears together so that all of these guns can fire in sync. I mean, what would be the point of that other than letting it fire synchronized, right?
I would assume so.
It's a timing belt. It has to be. But again, Superman is like, no, I would never use a gun, even though I just did 3 panels ago.
Even though one of the kids says that, and he's like, I've never needed a gun because of my strength. He's like, but what about? And he's like, no. Robots I do not kill. No. Shh, be quiet, child.
Never questioned the soups.
So Superman's like, take me to the DNA dictators. My strength and Superman-ness alone will be enough. And I'm like, this Superman feels very arrogant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Superman and the kids go to Wayne Laboratories, which is where the DNA dictators are. And then, Jonah, what does he find at Wayne Laboratories guarding the place?
I can just read you the little description because it's too good not to. As the Man of Tomorrow charges through the chain link fence, demonic security guards in Nazi regalia appear on the ramparts. So the fact that it has to dramatically make Superman break through a chain link fence killed me. I was dying laughing. I'm like, wow, he is powerful.
Yeah, whoa, he's so strong. Stand back, kids. I've got this. Whoa, Superman. He's so strong.
So when I first saw this panel, I immediately screenshotted it, posted it on our Discord with the comment from Garth Marenghi where he's like, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
So all these monsters show up and they all have they have like SS helmets on. They have swastikas on their shoulders. But then the next panel is even better. And it only gets better because he begins fighting these like, what are they called? Just genetic monsters with these that have these vocal cords where they only yell synonyms for killing. And the kids get involved and they're like shooting their guns and, everyone's just having a big brouhaha. Okay,
I found it. I was trying to find the stupid name they had for them, and they are the DN-animals.
Oh, that's right. So
I knew they had DN-animals? I don't know how you would even pronounce that.
Yeah, I knew they had some kind of stupid fucking name. And so, they're all fighting, and all the DN-animals are they're let's be honest here, they're kind of kicking the kids' asses because like they are literally still just children with guns. And they're like, Superman, help us. No, not the kids. And he's like, stop killing these children. And then the true masterminds are revealed. Twin Adolf Hitlers.
Yes. If you thought it was going to be Hitler, you were only half right. It's 2 Hitlers. Because I thought it was going to be 1 Hitler, and what a fool I was.
The egg really was on your face, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Prepare for trouble and make it double. Hitler. Also Hitler. Meow, that's right. So we have twin Hitlers that have been cloned at some point.
From like a hair they had of Hitler for some reason.
Do they actually explain it?
They do. They basically are like, so these scientists were like, hey, we can clone anything because we're awesome. Let's try cloning Hitler for some reason. And then Hitler and his brother Hitler teamed up and were like, suckers, we actually, for some reason, know how to use all this modern technology and took over everything. So it turns out they were the real reason of that the second apocalypse happened.
Exactly. It all makes sense now.
I mean, it couldn't be any clearer.
Honestly, like one of my favorite, like just absolute favorite moments in this whole comic is when the twin Hitlers show up and he's like, who ordered you to murder these innocent children? And he's like, we didn't tell them to murder the kids. And then Superman looks up to who's talking and he goes, my God, Adolf Hitler, 2 of you.
Oh, it's brilliant.
So the Twinlers, they tell Superman, basically like, we want you to join us in our, Nazi stuff.
They're like, can we, let me propose this to you. Can we grind you down into a pulp and then use your DNA to make super soldiers? There is a substantial signing bonus.
What does he say? The power of the Third Reich is forever. Why don't you join us? Your DNA will be the genesis of a world of proud young supermen. You'll rule the world with us. Think about it. Take your time. And then he's like, and go and take those children with you. And they want Superman to consider their extremely generous offer. And so they leave.
Yeah, they just let him leave. They're just like, think about our offer. And Superman's like, well, because I've been out of the sun for another 15 minutes, I am just a normal guy now. So they go back to the Batcave. This is exactly what happens.
Yep.
So back in the Batcave, there's a gun, a very powerful gun. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's called the Expunger. It's amazing looking. It's a Rob Liefeld wet dream.
The moment this drawing was completed, Rob Liefeld was just at home and he goes, so anyway, I was, oh God, someone just drew a gun bigger than someone's head.
So he finally is like, okay, I guess gun is good now.
Gun is good. Yeah. And then he says, honestly, one of like the best lines I've ever read in my life. And he says, it's time for Superman to finish World War II.
Yep. So the Hitlers, oh God, it's so hard to say this without just laughing about how ridiculous it gets. So he shows up with the Expunger and chain guns a wall of monsters to death. But even though he doesn't kill, because I guess he's making an exception to these weird mutant monsters.
Yeah, well, because like they're not people. It's fine.
Yeah, well, and the best part, I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that happen.
There's a lot of great stuff in this.
But he's like, this is the place the harvesters bring our parents. And it's like as I mentioned before, the giant machine that just grinds everything down into a fine paste that they extract DNA from. And Superman's response is, yes, the atrocities of World War II never ended. And then he turns to Hitler Bros and says, you're exactly like him, aren't you? You really are Hitler. It's like, dude.
They told you.
For one, they told you. There's two of them. They're wearing Nazi uniforms. They even have the mustache.
I was like, they even have the mustache and their haircut. Like, they look exactly like Hitler.
Right. And even his goons were wearing Nazi insignias and swastikas everywhere. It's like, yes, they are Hitlers. Come on.
I do like the idea that this is the point where Superman suddenly goes, oh my God, what if those guys outside with the mustaches, what if that's Adolf Hitler?
So they're like, oh, you think you're awesome and all, but you haven't met our secret weapon. He's special just for you because he's an old friend. And these doors hiss open and we see the silhouette of maybe Batman, and he's yelling or saying Clark. So we know he's just normal Batman, right?
Yeah, right. It's totally fine.
So it's, of course, a monster Batman that he cloned into existence using Batman's bones that he stole.
Yeah.
And he's super strong, and somehow has Batman's memories imprinted on him.
Yep. He sure does.
But he says, yes, Bruce Wayne's mind and Batman's black heart. I'm like, I don't really think of Batman as a black-hearted character.
Yeah, I really don't.
Considering when other heroes try to kill someone, he's like, we're not doing this, and if you try it again, I'm going to break your hand.
Right.
Because that is literally a thing he has done before. So Superman, using the last of his strength that he suddenly has again, takes this big final boss out in two. I was going to call him One Punch Man, but it looks like it actually took him two punches.
Yeah, it took him two.
Nice try, Superman, but Saitama's still got you beat.
So he punches him once on the chin, and then he punches him again in the stomach, and then in the next panel, his entire body has exploded, and you can see his ribs and his guts and everything.
Yeah, it's like whatever he did to this monster man, just evaporated his flesh or something. That seems like a pretty powered up Superman punch to kind of vaporize someone like this.
And he's only at half power.
Yeah, he does like to tell us that.
Well, actually, it's probably been another 5 minutes or so he's probably at 1/8 power by this point.
True. So he confronts the Hitlers and give me back my friend's bones. And he's like, that's Bruce's coffin. So not only did he put the bat symbol on his tomb, his coffin is literally a sarcophagus of Batman.
Yeah, and it's so ugly. It's so fucking ugly. If someone tried to bury me in that, I would come back to life just to say, don't you dare put my body in this.
Mm-hmm. And so Clark is very upset about this situation. And the Hitlers are like, you don't know anything. We're the real Superman, and start shooting a bunch of guns at him. And, oh no, his power's finally fully depleted. And he's like, no, these bullets are actually hurting me, kind of. They keep
pain, blood.
Keep implying that they're hurting him, but they never really show that it's hurting him. He's like, oh no, I'm not invulnerable anymore. But then he just picks up the, our favorite giant gun.
The gun that's
the expunger, and kills both Hitlers with it.
Of course he does. He says, curse you to hell. Your day of darkness is ended.
Yeah. And when he opens the sarcophagus, you want to give us a little mental picture of what he finds inside.
So
it is hilarious to me.
He opens the sarcophagus, which, again, we've said here, looks exactly like Batman. And then he opens it, and Batman is inside. Not Bruce Wayne. Batman is inside the sarcophagus. His little bat ears perfectly conforming to the sarcophagus.
That was my favorite part, is that the sarcophagus and the bat suit were clearly designed by the same person.
Yes.
So that they work together.
Yeah. Which, it just makes sense. Land is at a premium. You don't want to be using any more space than you have to.
Exactly.
And he looks terrifying as well.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like, oh, but he's a zombie now for some reason, because why not with this Buck Wild story?
Why not?
But he's just a dead body that for some reason is still somewhat intact.
Yeah, after, what, like 100 years?
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, the insulation on the coffin's really good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the whole place blows up for some reason.
Evil layers tend to do that once the bad guys are defeated.
What's the bad guys? Once both Hitlers have been taken out. The Hitler and then the safety Hitler. So they leave, and they're like, what are you going to do with Batman's corpse? And he's like, I'm going to cremate it so this never happens again. So that when third and fourth Hitler arrive, they won't be able to use it.
No more Batman bones for you, young man.
I'm cutting you off.
So yes, and then the Mark 7s or whatever they were called from the beginning of the story show up and are like, hey, I guess you cleaned up all this crazy stuff, but hey, what's going on, Superman? You're dying. We can just put you in one of our cool robo bodies. And he's like, I'm going to stop you right there and kill myself in this fire.
That's a great offer, but I'm going to kill myself instead.
So Superman, holding the corpse of his beloved friend Bruce Wayne, walks into a funeral pyre and kills himself. And then the kids are like, I hate guns now, and throw them into the fire. And that's the end of the story.
Yep.
I think we've all learned a valuable lesson about gun control.
We have learned a valuable lesson about gun control. Guns, if they're big enough and being used to kill Hitler,
they're
are
awesome.
Good. Otherwise, they're awesome.
Otherwise, they suck.
Otherwise, they suck, yeah. And I hate these stupid guns. If it wasn't for guns, Superman would still be alive.
Now, we've come to the end. There's some things we didn't touch on that I would like to say just right at the top. These kids really annoyed me because it's okay to have kids in your story or whatever. Like, everyone's going to be like, oh, annoying kids. My problem with them was actually the fact that for whatever reason, they turned them into Huey, Dewey, and Louie, where they finish each other's sentences. Constantly. And that was really annoying.
It's really stupid.
I don't know why that thing bothered me so much, but I'm like, can they just stop doing this, please? It's really annoying and makes no sense. Like, you know how you and your close friends, Kieran, were always finishing each other's sentences while you were talking to Superman?
Constantly.
It's just like that.
It's just like that. The kids were kind of written like a really annoying Huey, Dewey, and Louie if they were also crossed with like some kind of weird like New York gangster kind of thing, because the kids, I always kind of imagine them in my head sounding like, hey, we hates these stupid guns. If it wasn't for guns, Superman would still be alive. And
oh yeah, they do have like their own verbiage for a lot of things as well, because it's the future and it's post-apocalyptic. Obviously. They call him Super Duper Man at one point. It's certainly a thing.
It's a thing
they did in this book.
Yeah.
They actually kind of, to me, invoked like, you know how in the Tank Girl episode, we talked about how Tank Girl's really good, but other books that try and emulate Tank Girl are not.
Yes.
That's what it felt like to
yes,
me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I feel like with, and I'm sure we've talked about this before with like other post-apocalyptic books that we've covered. There is like a line for post-apocalyptic stuff where you're like, wow, this is really cool. Wow, this is really cool. Then you cross the line and you go, wow, this is really stupid and annoying, and I don't like it.
And it actually retroactively made everything else worse.
Yeah. If this is what the future is like, I'm going to walk straight into that funeral pyre and kill myself.
With Superman. Put your hand on his blazing shoulder and immolate.
And his flaming skull and his light beard.
Uh-huh. Man, that must have smelled bad.
He would have smelled awful. Like, because he's literally just standing there burning to death.
I mean, can you imagine how bad he smelled alive, though, even? Because, like, it's been a year where they just had him, like, charging in the sun.
Not washing himself at all, no.
I'm assuming not. So let's get into this.
If he gets into the shower, then he's not in the sun anymore. And he starts losing his powers.
He might die.
It's like what happened to Superman. Oh, he decharged in the shower, slipped over, and died.
Yeah. He was enjoying that bubble bath a little too much and died. So, Kieran.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us some final thoughts on Superman at Earth's End?
I don't really know if I can recommend Superman at Earth's End or like not recommend Superman at Earth's End. Mm-hmm. Like honestly, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh, extremely.
Yeah. Like it's bad, but it's like, it's not offensive or anything, you know, there's nothing offensive about it. It's just mid-90s trash, to be honest.
It feels like the kind of B movie they would riff on Mystery Science Theater. Like, it's that level of, like, cheesy garbage that's, like, fun if you're in the mood for that. And it's literally no way to get it except for pirating it, unless you can find some old copy somewhere. So, like, if you're interested in reading it, which I actually, if you like, you know, the terrible movies type of stuff, it's worth looking up for that alone. And I mean, you got to at least Google the image, which I definitely am using for the art for this episode of him holding that giant gun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it just being like, this is really good. But if people are like, what's the worst comic you've read? I'm like, well, if you want to read something that's bad but still fun, check this out. Because we've read some bad stuff that I'm like, no, don't read it. It's not even fun to read.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, which is why I'm so like, I don't want to recommend it because I don't want people to be like, oh, you think this is good? Because it's like, no, I don't.
No. I think this is garbage.
This is bad. But it's also like, I don't want to be like, no, stay away. It's really terrible. Because like, it was still fun. Like, I still enjoyed being like, wow, there's two Hitlers in this.
Yeah. It's kind of like the dog threw up, but there was something weird in it. And you have to call your partner over and be like, what is in this barf?
Yeah, it's like when you look down in the toilet and you're like, whoa, look at all that corn. Like, it's kind of like that, you know? It's surprising. It's surprising and exciting, but ultimately it's still
a turd. Yeah.
It's still a turd, yeah. So like, just Google Superman at Earth's End, read online, honestly, and just read it. It took me like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's very, very quick. And even, I don't think even our descriptions do justice to how goofy some of this paneling is. And the thing is, like, I wouldn't even say the art is particularly bad. It's definitely of its era.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I wouldn't be like, oh, man, I can't believe this. So, like, it's like, there's nothing overtly, like you said, just offensive about it. It's just so dumb.
It's just stupid, yeah.
But it does have two Hitlers. So if you want to see... If you love media where Hitler gets killed, and I know I do, you get to see two of them get killed in this.
Yeah. Two for the price of one.
So I guess it is a good book. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. So, Kieran, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett. You can check out my D&D podcast. That's for Crits and Giggles, which is at for CNG Podcast. Jonah, where can people find you online?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at @ArealJonah, and you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues, where we usually stream episodes as we record them, but not always. Sometimes it's been a long day and we're all sweaty and we don't feel like being on camera. Which is the case for this episode. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for listening, and we will catch you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Danimals.
Isn't
that like dip frosting or something?
When they're all called Daniel.
Need more mutants, metahumans, or monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows, including Cthulhu and Friends, Dear Internet, Greetings Adventures, Transformation Sequence, and many more fantastic podcasts. You can help us make the show the best it can be by supporting us over at patreon.com/inksandissues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to also leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us spread the word. Want to interact with us on Twitter? You can find us at Inks and Issues or on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh darn comics!